I realized at a fairly young age that my mindset and the way that my mind worked was different than anybody else's. And when I would talk to my friends about it, they're like, man, you're weird. You're just a weird kid. And so I learned not to talk about it. That's where the stigma came in. And so as I got older, the mental health side of me got a little worse. So kind of the defining moment of everything, woke up on just a typical morning. I was running a construction site. I had a bunch of guys working for me, and I had felt kind of off, for the last, 6 months or so. So I wake up, 5:30 in the morning, and I was married back then, and leaned over and kissed my wife. She was still sleeping. Take a shower. I go upstairs. I kiss the kids before they go to school. Everybody's asleep. And I go out and get my dog, throw the dog in the backseat of my truck, and we went to go check on our job sites. I found myself driving up a canyon that I'd frequented quite often just to kind of unplug. So I got to the top of the canyon and let the dog out of the back of the truck and was listening to the music. And I'm watching Puma, my dog. She's running around just happy, just the love of life that she had. Yet I'm sitting in the truck in complete despair. And in one brief moment of irrational thinking, in one brief moment of just irrational thinking, I reached over to the center glove box of my truck and I grabbed my pistol and I loaded it and I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger. Honestly, that's the only time in my entire life that I've ever quit. The end result wasn't what I expected for it to come. All it was just this loud click. So thinking that I didn't load it, I chambered another bullet. Well, the original bullet flipped out and landed in my lap. I picked up the bullet and looked at it, and you could see where the firing pin had hit the primer. It just didn't go off. The crazy part about that is, after that experience, for the next 30 to 45 seconds after that, never felt better in my life. The rush that I got was unbelievable. But while I was driving back down the canyon, the adrenaline goes away, and then those thoughts start coming back. And so I get a hold of my doctor and kind of explained everything to him. He canceled all of his appointments and he says, you need to get down here. So I went down and spoke to him, and we did, all the tests that they do. You fill out all the paperwork, and that's kind of where I figured out, all right, you're a bipolar guy, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. So that's where the title of the book, Bulletproof, comes into play, because that stuff just doesn't happen, right? I've shot thousands of rounds through that pistol before, never had a misfire. And so it was, I started, I'd always tell my mom, my mom would say, hey, how you doing today? Mom, I'm bulletproof. And that's where a lot of the racing comes into play as well, for me at least, is that I've taken every single form of bipolar med, depression med, I've taken everything that you can possibly think of, because it was always that, let's try to control it. The only thing that has ever worked for me was my helmet. It's the craziest thing. Once you put the helmet on, everything just stops. All the junk, all the weird, crazy thoughts, they just go away. Now, don't get me wrong, I still suffer with the disorder. You don't just cure it. There's times that I'll still spend weeks in bed. I won't leave. I'll lock myself in my dungeon. But at the end of the day, I also know that I have something to look forward to, which is driving the race car. and my children. And so if I can stand in front of a group of 100 people and one person gets it, they're like, oh yeah, you know what, I felt like that, and it stops them from doing anything bad or gives them the opportunity to know that they need to talk to their people, man, my job's done, you know? I mean, it's like, that's ultimately what I'm trying to do.